When you set out to achieve something,
Mhm.
something really meaningful, there's this sort of unspoken agreement, right? That difficulty is just, it's guaranteed.
Mhm.
But how often do we actually stop and analyze the obstacle itself? We usually just react.
Exactly. We react to it like it's a total interruption, a painful, frustrating
Hmm.
anomaly that means we have to stop everything, turn around, and find a completely different route.
Yeah, a roadblock.
A roadblock, exactly, which is a completely natural reaction.
Yeah.
But it treats the obstacle as this, path of dead thing.
Yeah.
But what if it isn't? What if that roadblock is actually alive?
What do you mean alive?
I mean, what if the adversity you're facing holds the exact instructions for overcoming it? That's the radical philosophy we're diving into today.
And for this deep dive, we're pulling our sources from reviews and key excerpts of R.Holiday's 2014 book, The Obstacle is the Way, The Timeless Art of Turning Trials into Triumph.
This isn't just some modern self-help book. It's really a direct line to ancient wisdom. What's so fascinating is how seamlessly it channels the core principles of Stoicism. The central thesis of the entire book is pulled straight from the ancient texts, specifically the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius. It's a philosophy built on one single, powerful maxim.
That famous quote, the one that serves as the foundation for the whole thing, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way.
Precisely. The argument is that obstacles, they aren't detours. They're not barriers. They're actually opportunities for growth and eventually triumph.
So the only variable that really determines our success or failure isn't the obstacle itself.
No, it's our disciplined response to it.
Okay, so if the response is the key, how do we structure it? I mean, you can't just wish your way through a problem.
You can't. And the source material lays out this really practical sequential framework for it. It's organized into 3 interconnected disciplines: perception, action, and will.
So they teach us, in order, how to think, how to move, and then, crucially, how to endure.
And it's a complete system. You can't just skip a step. You have to start by mastering the mental game, your internal view, before you can execute any kind of external plan. And you need that final discipline to sustain you through the long haul.
So let's start at the beginning, the most fundamental and I think often the most challenging one, perception. Okay, let's unpack this. Perception is the starting line. It's where our success is either, secured or completely sabotaged. When we hit that crisis, we have a split-second choice about how we categorize it.
Right. Are you choosing to see panic, or are you choosing to see a problem that just requires a solution?
And the Stoic requirement here is rigor, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
It demands that you adopt an objective, unemotional lens. The whole goal is to separate the raw facts of the situation from your highly subjective, often fear-driven judgments about those facts.
So you have to ask what truly happened versus what am I telling myself about what happened?
Exactly. But that's incredibly hard when the stakes are high, when an event feels catastrophic.
Right. So how do we stop that objective perception from just turning into resignation, just giving up?
That brings us to the core mechanism of the discipline, the locus of control. You have to distinguish between what is under your immediate control, and that's a very short list.
Your attitudes, your decisions, your effort.
That's about it. And then there's everything else, which is the vast majority of external events. If you focus your energy on things outside your control, you are guaranteeing failure in the areas you can master.
So the goal isn't just to stay calm, it's really to conserve and redirect your energy. What are some of the active techniques the Stoics use to maintain that grace under pressure?
Well, one of the most powerful ancient techniques is something called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils.
Sounds a little pessimistic.
It does, but it's actually a shield. It means actively imagining the worst-case scenario before it happens. You preemptively rehearse losing your job or having a project fail. When the actual event happens, it's less shocking.
Ah, I see. It's less capable of inducing panic. You maintain emotional distance because you've already been there in your mind.
You've already processed the possibility. It removes the element of surprise, and surprise is what so often triggers that emotional meltdown.
If you're prepared, you can maintain composure. You can start asking strategic questions instead of just reacting.
Exactly. When everyone else is drowning in emotional hysteria, the person practicing disciplined perception is asking, okay, what are the facts here? What resources do I still have? What am I choosing not to see because I'm just consumed by fear?
And that lets you reframe the obstacle within a much broader, cooler context. The examples of this are so compelling because they show this discipline in extreme environments.
Oh, for sure.
Like John D. Rockefeller during the Panic of 1907. I mean, the entire financial system was collapsing, competitors were
And
panicking.
liquidating assets at rock-bottom prices.
Ooh.
But he maintained that objective lens. He separated the external chaos from his internal response. And because of that, he was able to see an opportunity where everyone else saw only ruin.
And he acted strategically. Or you think of Steve Jobs. His ability to reframe being ousted from Apple, I mean, that's catastrophic.
For most people, that's the end of their career. But he saw it not as an end, but as a necessary, painful learning phase. That led to NXT, to Pixar, and then ultimately back to Apple. That requires immense perceptual discipline.
Yeah. If you let panic take over, the game is over before you even make your first move.
All right.
So it sounds like perception is the necessary filter. Once we've filtered the problem into a set of manageable facts, the question becomes, how do we actually start moving? Because clear sight shouldn't lead to paralysis.
That's a perfect transition, because action is exactly where we move from the internal to the external. If perception tells you where the target is, action is the relentless strategic effort you need to dismantle the barrier.
I think the biggest hurdle here is usually the sheer scale of the obstacle. When something feels massive, we freeze.
We do. But the discipline of action teaches us that most obstacles appear to be a single, overwhelming monolith. But they're almost invariably made up of smaller, interconnected problems.
So you have to break it down.
You have to break it down. The core advice is break the overwhelming problem into small, deliberate, manageable steps. You don't solve the crisis of a failed company in one go. You focus on making one cold call or fixing one bug.
That sounds almost mundane. You know, we expect the response to a crisis to be some dramatic movie-level maneuver, but this approach is more about just showing up and chipping away.
It's the persistence, not the drama, that moves the needle. And critically, you can't wait for perfect conditions. You can't wait for a guaranteed outcome. The book stresses that you need persistent and strategic movement right now, even under uncertainty.
So action is iterative. You take a step, it might be the wrong one.
And that's okay,
Mm-hmm.
because that failure generates immediate, necessary feedback.
And that's why we see this philosophy adopted so heavily in the business world, isn't it? Setbacks aren't failures, they're just feedback.
Absolutely. The whole concept of the minimum viable product, the MVP, is a modern corporate application of this. You don't aim for the perfect launch. You launch the smallest possible working version, learn instantly from the market's feedback, and then you persist strategically toward improvement.
It prevents that scattered effort of trying 10 random things at once out of desperation.
And it forces directed energy.
Yeah.
Instead of spending weeks planning the perfect action, you spend hours executing the most necessary, smallest action.
Yeah.
You learn, and then you repeat.
We see this played out in history with figures like Amelia Earhart. Her career was just a series of incredibly bold, strategic actions.
Taken despite overwhelming uncertainty and risk. She didn't wait for a perfectly safe window or a guarantee of success. She acted, she iterated her approach, and she constantly adapted her strategy based on the immediate circumstances. She dismantled her own barriers through sheer focused effort.
Okay, so we perceive objectively, which allows us to act strategically and iteratively. But
Yeah.
let's face it, strategic action can take months, years even,
Yeah.
or maybe the adversity you face, a chronic illness, an unavoidable recession, the failure of a project you poured your heart into. It's just so heavy you want to quit. This is where the framework is often weakest in summaries, but arguably it's the most essential piece for long-term survival.
The discipline of will.
Exactly.
You've hit on the crucial element. Will is your inner fortitude. It's the ability to accept what truly cannot be changed, those external events outside your locus of control, while persisting through severe long-term hardship.
It's the fuel for resilience.
It's the capacity to endure. But it seems like the biggest philosophical leap in this framework, accepting constraint. It sounds dangerously close to being passive.
That's what I was thinking. How do you accept something terrible while also maintaining the fierce determination to keep taking action?
This is where we introduce the profound Stoic concept of amor fati,
Love of fate.
love of fate. But it doesn't mean passively saying, oh, I guess this is my life now. It means actively transforming those constraints, those unavoidable circumstances, into the very material you need for success. It's turning suffering into a source of creative drive.
I still find that harder to grasp than the other two. How does one love something terrible?
Think of it this way. If a sculptor is given a massive block of granite, the shape, the hardness, the imperfections of that granite are her fate.
Okay.
She can curse the block. She can lament the shape it should have been. Or she could accept the constraint, the grain, the size, as the design brief for the unique statue she's now required to carve.
I see. So amor fati is seeing the limitation not as a roadblock, but as the raw material for a necessary and maybe even a better path.
Yes, the reframing makes the connection clearer. The inability to get external financing isn't just a loss. It forces you to innovate, to build a leaner, more resilient business than you might have otherwise.
The constraint forces creativity.
Exactly. Will is what binds the other two disciplines together. Without it, you might have objective perception for a day, you might take strategic action for a week, but when the real setback hits 6 months in, you'll crash.
So will is what makes sure you maintain that objective lens when things are truly dire.
And it provides the unshakable determination you need to see challenges through to the very end. It transforms unchangeable reality into defining purpose.
It's the inner resilience that turns the cycle into genuine triumph instead of just letting it burn out under pressure. Without embracing the struggle, the whole framework just collapses.
And that embracing of the struggle, that fortitude, that's what builds true confidence. Not confidence based on external results, but on the deep knowledge that you can handle whatever comes next.
So, zooming out, what we have is this highly actionable framework. First, master your perception, separating fact from judgment. Second, master your action, moving strategically and breaking problems down. And third, master your will, enduring hardship and turning constraints into creative fuel.
And this approach has, successfully crossed from philosophy into practice in some of the highest stakes arenas you can imagine.
We're talking real high-pressure adoption. This isn't just airport reading.
Not at all. This methodology has been adopted by major institutions. It was famously used by NFL coaches, including the New England Patriots' 2014 Super Bowl team, to handle pressure and adversity all season.
And NBA teams? Olympians. It's a mindset toolkit for navigating competitive uncertainty and managing defeat.
That validation from leadership in these hyper-competitive fields, it really speaks to the practical power of Stoicism. It's designed for people who simply cannot afford to waste energy on panic.
And the book's global success, over 100,000 copies sold, translated into 17 languages. It really positions it as this indispensable guide for leaders, entrepreneurs.
And frankly, for anyone who wants a strategic advantage over the inevitable setbacks of modern life.
So this deep dive is really a shortcut to that strategic advantage. It's a guide to get you past that typical reaction of anxiety and frustration and into a proactive, strategic mindset.
So as we wrap up, we want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, one that applies all three disciplines immediately. Consider a specific resource limitation or external constraint you're currently facing.
It could be lack of time, lack of money, lack of some specific expertise.
And ask yourself, how might practicing the discipline of will, really loving that constraint, force you to invent a radically different and maybe more effective action than you would have taken if the path had been easy?
Start seeing that constraint not as something holding you back, but as the mandatory creative boundary that defines your next great achievement. Because when you change your perception, what stands in the way? It truly becomes the way forward.